I need to tell you something before we start. There are 4 verses in the Bible that the church has never fully explained. They sit right before the story of Noah's flood, and what they describe, if taken literally, as the original text demands, changes everything you thought you knew about the world before the flood. Most people read past these verses their entire lives. Pastors skip them, theologians argue about them, and the answer hidden in the original Hebrew has been deliberately buried under 1,700 years of church politics. But here is the part that will truly shock you. And I'm going to ask you to hold this question in your mind until the very end of this video. If God sent the flood specifically to destroy these beings, why do they appear again after the flood? How did they survive? And what does that survival connect to a story you know by heart? A story every child learns in Sunday school. Keep that question, we will get there. But first, Genesis 6:4. 4 verses that nobody can explain. Genesis 6:1-4. The text says this: When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. Sons of God, daughters of humans. Nephilim, heroes of old, men of renown. This is in your Bible. It has always been there, and the church has spent 1,700 years trying to make it sound ordinary. The phrase sons of God in Hebrew is Benai Elohim. This exact phrase appears 3 other times in the Old Testament: Job 1:6, Job 2:1, and Job 38:7. In every single one of those passages, Benai Elohim refers to angelic beings, members of God's divine council, not humans, not a family line, supernatural beings. The earliest Jewish translation of the Bible, the Septuagint, written in the 3rd century BC, translated sons of God in Genesis 6 as angels. The Book of Enoch, one of the oldest Hebrew texts ever discovered, calls them watchers, 200 angelic beings who abandoned heaven and descended to Mount Hermon to take human wives. The New Testament Book of Jude, verse 6, references angels who did not keep their proper domain and abandoned their own dwelling. Scholars directly connect this language to Genesis 6. For the first 300 years of Christianity, this was the standard interpretation. Angels, not metaphor. Actual supernatural beings who violated a boundary God had set. Did you know this was the original Christian interpretation? That angels literally came to earth and had children with women? Drop yes or no in the comments. I want to know how many people were taught this, and how many were taught something completely different. Then something changed, and the change came from one man. 4th century AD Augustine of Hippo, one of the most powerful theologians in the history of Christianity, looked at Genesis 6 and found it deeply uncomfortable. Angels mating with humans sounded too much like Greek mythology, like Zeus and his half-god children. The church could not accept this. So Augustine proposed a different explanation. The sons of God were simply godly men from the line of Seth, the righteous son of Adam. The daughters of men were ungodly women from the line of Cain. The problem was not supernatural, it was just spiritually strong men making bad marriages. And because Augustine was Augustine, this interpretation spread across Western Christianity and stayed there for over 1,000 years. The problem is that the text does not say that, not even close. The Hebrew word used for the women is daughters of Ha-Adam, daughters of the human being, meaning all of humanity. The text deliberately contrasts them with a completely different category of being. If they were just 2 family lines, why does the text use language that implies 2 fundamentally different types of existence? Notice something. The text says the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. Two words that the church has never explained, and also afterward. After what? After the flood? If God destroyed the Nephilim with the flood, how were they also afterward? Hold that thought. It becomes important. The word Nephilim comes from the Hebrew root naphal, to fall. The fallen ones. The Greek Septuagint translated it as gigantes, the same word used for the Titans in Greek mythology. Enormous, powerful, half divine. The Book of Enoch describes them as giants whose height was 300 cubits, a number scholars consider symbolic for incomprehensible scale. But here is what made them dangerous. Genesis 6:5, the verse that immediately follows, says that after the Nephilim appeared, God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Every thought, every intention, only evil, continually. And in the very next verse, God decides to send the flood. The Nephilim did not just exist in the world. The ancient Jewish tradition says they corrupted it. The Book of Enoch says they taught humanity forbidden knowledge, metallurgy for weapons, sorcery, astrology, and the art of war. They are the reason God pressed reset on the entire human race. If fallen angels actually came to earth and corrupted humanity, what does that mean for the flood? Was it a punishment for humans, or was it a targeted destruction of something that should never have existed? Leave your answer below. Now, we return to the question I asked at the beginning, the question I told you to hold. If God sent the flood specifically to destroy the Nephilim, why do they appear again after the flood? Numbers 13:33. The Israelite spies have just returned from scouting the promised land. Listen to what they report. We saw the Nephilim there. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. This is after the flood. Centuries after, the Nephilim are still there. Scholars have wrestled with this for centuries. Two theories exist. Theory 1. The same event happened again after the flood. Other fallen angels descended and produced a second generation of Nephilim, different from those imprisoned after the first event. Theory 2, and this is the one that disturbs scholars the most, the wives of Noah's sons. They were not descended from Noah. They came from outside his family line, and some ancient texts suggest they may have carried Nephilim genetics. The flood killed the Nephilim, but their DNA may have survived on the ark. This second theory has one devastating implication. If Nephilim genetics survived the flood inside the ark, then somewhere in the post-flood world, a descendant of these giants would appear, and that descendant would eventually face someone from the line of the people God chose, someone whose own family tree contains one of the darkest stories in the Bible, someone we discussed in our last video. We are almost at the twist. Which theory do you believe? Did fallen angels return after the flood? Or did Nephilim genetics survive on the ark? This is one of the most debated questions in biblical scholarship. Tell me what you think below. The post-flood giants had names: the Anakim, the Rephaim, the Emim, the Zamsumim. Entire nations of enormous people who occupied the promised land before Israel arrived. Deuteronomy 3:11 describes the bed of Og, king of Bashan, one of the last of the Rephaim. His iron bed was 9 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. In modern measurements, approximately 13.5 feet long. He is not a legend. Deuteronomy records that his bed was kept in a museum in the city of Rabbah as a historical artifact. Joshua was commanded to completely destroy the Anakim, but he failed to finish the job. Joshua 11:22 records that survivors of the Anakim remained in 3 cities: Gaza, Gath, and Ashdod. Gath. The Anakim who escaped Joshua settled in Gath. And from Gath, centuries later, came a warrior whose description matches every marker of Nephilim descent. A champion of the Philistines, 9 feet and 9 inches tall, wearing scale armor weighing 125 pounds, carrying a spear with an iron point weighing 15 pounds. And the Bible calls him a Gibberim, the exact same word used for the Nephilim in Genesis 6:4. His name was Goliath of Gath. Nephilim to Anakim to survivors in Gath to Goliath. The bloodline of the fallen ones, if the ancient texts are right, ended not in the flood, not in Joshua's conquest, but on a hillside in the valley of Elah, where a young shepherd boy picked up 5 smooth stones. His name was David. And now the twist that connects both videos. In our last video, the story of Sodom, we followed the family of Lot, his daughters in the cave, the nation of Moab born from that night, and a Moabite woman named Ruth who married into Israel. Ruth's great-grandson was David. The boy who killed Goliath was a direct descendant of the cave of Lot, through the Moabite line, and his opponent, the giant he faced, carried the bloodline of the Nephilim, the beings whose existence triggered the flood. The seed of the woman against the seed of the serpent. Genesis 3:15, spoken at the very beginning, says there will be enmity between the offspring of the serpent and the offspring of the woman, and that one day the offspring of the woman will crush the serpent's head. David crushing the skull of a Nephilim descendant with a stone was not just a battle. According to the original text, it was the fulfillment of the oldest prophecy in the Bible. Did you see that connection? Ruth, Sodom, Lot, David, Goliath, Nephilim, Genesis 3:15. All one story. If this video connected dots you had never connected before, share it. Someone you know needs to see this thread. Genesis 6:4 sits 4 verses before Noah's flood. The church spent 1,700 years trying to make it sound like bad marriages. The original text, the original translations, and the oldest Jewish traditions say something completely different. Supernatural beings crossed a boundary. The corruption they caused was total. God reset the world. But something survived, and the final descendant of that bloodline was killed by a shepherd boy whose great-grandmother was a Moabite, whose great-great-grandfather was born in a cave, who was the grandson of a man God called the only righteous person in Sodom. The Bible is not a collection of separate stories. It is one story, and it has been telling the same story from Genesis 3 to the Valley of Elah, the moment when everything that fell was finally crushed. But David did not kill just Goliath. 2 Samuel 21 records that David and his mighty men killed 4 more giants from Gath. One of them had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. The text says he was born to the giant, a deliberate genealogical statement, and the man who killed this 6-fingered giant was Jonathan, David's nephew, the same name as David's closest friend who died. That is not a coincidence. That is the next video.